This episode of the SwitchCast is produced by Mecha Dragon, our honored Patreon backer, and SwitchCat.
I love that name.
Hi everybody, I'm Casey.
And I'm JV.
And this is the SwitchCast, the podcast for the Nintendo Switch roisterer.
Ooh.
And we are getting this show off the ground a little earlier than usual, a little more rushed, but you know, still we got all the great content because I'm flying out of here early tomorrow morning. So JV's done me the great honor of getting home from work a little earlier so that I could sit down and go over everything that we got to take care of before. And honestly, I have to get this game off my chest this week. I have to talk about it now. And if I held this game, I want to talk about another week on my soul. I don't think I could take the burden.
Oh, yeah, well, today is a party-dedicated episode, but I think the game that you've been reviewing is a bit of an antithesis to that, so hopefully we can, bring your will up with the party episode today.
Okay, no, it's best of both worlds. It's a game that has very big highs and very deep lows, so we'll go with that. But yes, Mario Party, you promised us, JV, that you would have a pick to share on the Lens feed from your Mario Party weekend.
Oh, okay, good point. So I did actually ask the host of the party if I could take pictures or record, and they have a newborn kid, and they kind of felt uncomfortable with me taking any sort of pictures in their household. So if it was hosted in my own place, I would have 100%.
All right, so are you hosting a party at your place this weekend or not? That's my question, JV.
No, I'm not. I already had the party in a friend's place.
How did it go?
It went quite well. A lot of the folks there haven't played Mario Party in a long time, so it was a mix of Mario Party nostalgia fun, and the fact that Mario Party's minigames are actually quite solid. And I'm going to go over that a bit more in the review, but I have to say, it was what Nintendo was expecting with this game, that's for sure.
Awesome. So yeah, that is why we are going to definitely be talking about party games as a genre in today's episode for the Switch Focus. And I think it's a topic we have a lot to talk about because there's so much inventiveness and so many directions they can go in. But Mario Party does seem like the purest form of the genre that I think anyone could look at and say that's what a party game's all about, right?
Yeah, I can't really think of another game before the original Mario Party where the developers made a game intended for the party setting. It's
in the name.
Yeah, exactly. But I can't think of another game before the original Mario Party that was dedicated to the party game format.
Okay, that's a fair question. If anyone else can correct us on that,
yeah,
definitely leave us some feedback. I'd be curious to know what old ones. If we're looking purely though at video games, and I'll save it for the main topic, but I think we're going to probably dip into outside of maybe the video game realm for this too, because that is it's a big thing in tabletop arena too, that I think that a lot of games, Mario Party itself is a board game ostensibly, so I think it's pulling from our physical gaming backgrounds as well.
Yeah, which we have quite an extensive experience with.
Which is why I'm so excited to talk about this. So that's going to be really great. Yes.
Totally. Let's do it.
All right. So we'll go into the game station. We're going to get some reviews and then we'll go into that. But first, I just want to remind everybody, if you're listening to this show and you like hearing us talk, you're going to love reading what we have to say in a chat room even more.
Yeah. We have quite a bustling community within our Discord chat room, within our Facebook group, within Twitter itself. Our SwitchCast community is incredibly friendly and open, and I would love for all of you listeners who aren't already a part of it to come join us. Come join the SwitchCast party.
Yeah, I believe that Pinball FX tournament is still running, actually. If you want to go into our Discord chat, link in the show notes, you can join up and take part for a chance at a $50 gift card sponsored by one of our generous members, and we will be happy to announce your name on the show as well if you're one of those winners. But it's a pretty cool little thing, and we're going to be doing a lot of other events. As soon as I get back from my trip, I will be hosting definitely another one of those Nescathlons with the NES Classics games. We're going to do another trio of games for people to compete in, because that was pretty fun. We always got more stuff, and we're always open for people who want to run their own stuff. If you have an idea, let us know. We'll be happy to support you in running a group of some sort.
Our Discord and Facebook and Twitter communities are incredibly open-minded and happy to join any sort of competition that you all try to host. So if you want to host a tournament or an event for your Switch game that you really like, join our community and we'll be happy to help accommodate that.
All right, so let's go over to the game station and let's talk some games.
Let's do it.
All right, time to get this party started. Or should we start off with a little something mellower, build up the tension, and then crescendo with some parties?
I feel like we should get, the mellow part going. You don't want to spike too early. Let's get mellow, then party.
Okay, all right. So I have been playing something called Will, A Wonderful World this week, and
that sounds pleasant.
It poses the question, JV, I have to ask you, have you ever wanted something so badly that you prayed for it?
Yeah, I think that's happened before.
Okay, I think it's something that most people can relate to, whatever your beliefs, or even if your lack of beliefs. I feel like everyone at some point, like, oh, I really need this job. Oh, God or King of all cosmos, please help me get this, or help this happen, or maybe something really bad happened and you just wish it all didn't happen at all, or you get through something really tough.
Please, Flying Spaghetti Monster, may I have a good bowl of Italian food today? Basically,
that's what this game is really about, and you get to play the answerer of said prayers. So this is an interesting game where you play this, I guess you'd call it like a god of fate of sorts. You're this girl who is in, I guess, the realm of the gods. It's like that kind of world, like very Shinto religion type of setting where there's a bureaucracy of gods that all do certain tasks that are involved with humankind, right?
Yeah.
And you're there, and you have this little dog, assistant guy, and you get people's prayers in the forms of these letters that show up in a mailbox. And they start off pretty simple, right? You get these messages, and they play out like a visual novel, right? And I've had this discussion with a lot of people before. I've tried to get people into visual novel games several times, and the big problem that a lot of people have is that they tell me they can't really get into a game where there's no gameplay, right?
Right.
There's no, most of them are about reading, and then literally you make one or two decisions per hour of gameplay, and it's not even that big a deal. So you're very passive. This actually is the first time I've seen one that gives you a reasonable amount of gameplay that is directly involved in the way the plot plays out. And
okay.
Yeah.
So does this play out kind of similarly to, let's say, the 999, the Nonary series?
I will say, no, this is a totally different type of gameplay. So 999 series, those all had like room escapes, right? And that was a gameplay, and then when you beat a room escape, you advance the plot. I guess this is similar in that it's about plot, and then you have to solve a puzzle of sorts in order to advance. So what happens is you're going to read these people's problems, basically.
Gotcha.
And they start off pretty simply. It's... I was playing tennis one day, and I went home and I realized I left my keys on the court, and now I'm locked out of the house, and I had to sit outside all night. It was really, really crummy night. It's pretty bad, but not world-shattering, right?
Right.
So what you'll get is, after you read the story, and they're about like 2 to 5 minutes to read each, so they're like little mini vignettes that you read about, and they're really well written too. Like, these aren't just throwaway storylines. They start off, they might not be about much to begin with, but there's a lot of detail in the writing, the characterization. You kind of pick up who these people are. You get inside their heads a little bit. when you are finished reading the story, and they also kind of enhance it with a pretty good music track. There's a lot of mood sound effects, and maybe a little like, sound bite here and there. And sometimes there's a picture to help you out. So it's not just reading like a blank book. They actually do that extra step to make it more enjoyable and kind of fill in your imagination.
Get your mind a bit more involved in it.
Right. So then after you're done reading it, they'll give you, again, the story will be kind of broken up into blocks, of which there'll be 2 or 3, maybe a sentence here or there, that now is a movable object, right? Since you're the god of fate of sorts, that's not what they call you, but it's basically what you are. You can rearrange certain events so that it changes everything that happens. So maybe she says in the story, the lights were dim, right? And maybe that's, why she didn't notice that her keys were on the floor. You can grab that sentence that says the lights was dim and move it to later in the story to when she got home. Now the lights weren't dim when she was on the tennis court. And
it was dim when she got home.
Right. So now
that's less consequential.
Right, exactly. And so you've solved that little problem. And there's actually multiple ways they can sometimes end out. There's usually a grade rating you'll get from like X, like a fail, which just means something, the worst possible scenario happened. And then you'll get certain other ones. You can get like a B, a D, A ranking. But ideally you try to get the S ranking, which means you got the perfect, true ending to that chapter of the story.
Okay.
And sometimes they spice it up. Sometimes there'll be 2 stories that happen. Sometimes they actually happen next to each other. Like something will happen with a girl in front of her apartment building and the person who's living next door to her, right? Sometimes there'll be people on opposite ends of the world. Like there's one chapter you're introduced to Carlos, who is this poor Mexican boy who's trying to get to Hong Kong to look for his sister who disappeared a while ago, right? And he saved up all his life to go there. And then another chapter you'll read right after him is about this cop in Hong Kong who's his first day on the job, and it's just about him trying to get to work. Now, nothing in their stories interact. But what happens is, after you read both of their chapters, they'll place the blocks of text next to each other, and you can sometimes swap a line from one character's story to the other. So now the blocks are movable amongst 2 stories, and maybe you say, oh, Carlos bumped into somebody who picked his pocket and stole all his money, and now he can't get on the plane anymore, right? So that's his tragedy. Whereas if you change that and move that to the cop story, he bumps into somebody who ends up being a criminal, and he gets to arrest him and makes a really good impression his first day on the job, right? So that's the general way the puzzles work. There's a few other complications they throw in later, like certain events can only ever happen after another, or they'll limit the ways you can rearrange certain things. But that's the general way every puzzle chapter works out. And it's pretty satisfying because they get more and more tragic as the story goes on. But it's almost like Ghost Trick, right? Where every chapter, you follow someone and that same character, she gets killed in that game like how many times, right? You save the same girl's life in Ghost Trick over and over again. You're just like, man, this person's really prone. Well, this is about like 10 characters that all have this either prone to getting killed by gangsters or all sorts of horrible things happen to them along the way.
And then your ultimate goal is to try to save them all
correct. Now, sometimes there's some interesting interplay because their stories do start to get more and more actually intertwined, right? Like some of their stories feel very, very disparate. Like there's a kid who's just like some tech geek who has a crush on a girl from another chapter, right? But maybe she doesn't even know he exists. So
so those are kind of separate.
But then you find out maybe that girl has a brother who happens to also know Carlos, right? Like, not that that's actually when that happens, but everyone starts to have little more and more actual closer connections to each other, and events from one chapter will affect other people, kind of like butterfly effect-y, right?
Gotcha.
So like, even if something that happens in Hong Kong might eventually affect, like Hong Kong chapter 2 for this character might have consequences that affect Mexico chapter 6 on another character's storyline. And
okay, that's really cool. So you're really essentially becoming an author to this narrative that's unfolding before you.
Right. And it's pretty cool. And, and there's lots of different ones. Like most of the visual novels I play are always kind of take place in these fantasy realms of like either like samurai or like some weird steampunk stuff. But this is actually fairly based in the real world. There's some manga-y stuff that happens in here. And it's very manga stylized. Like one of the characters literally uses like a Batman style grappling hook to like save himself from falling off a building at one point. But other than that, generally the stuff is pretty realistic. But what might turn some people off, but actually can also be seen as one of the strengths for some people, is that it almost gets too real sometimes, right? The game,
right, okay.
The stakes slowly get raised. I won't even say slowly, like pretty quickly. The stakes get raised where every chapter can end with either someone getting knocked out, sent into a coma, died, and worse. Things that I can't even like really go into, but things that are just like really depressing, sad stuff happens. Especially with some of the characters, like one of the characters is a depressed artist who is like just looking to end it all, right? And you're basically trying to stop him from killing himself every other chapter or causing some events that like interrupt him from doing that. And I'll tell you though,
so it goes into some really intense themes.
I'll tell you, there's one chapter I started tearing up on the train. I had to cover my face. It was about a kitten named Spotty.
Oh my gosh, Casey!
And his the stray cat that helps teach him the way of the worlds. This friend of his named Daddy, and it has the saddest ending in the first, the bad ending that happened. It got me, man. It got me. I'm not joking. Like they are really good at playing the tearjerker card and just. Sometimes it's heavy-handed. It's a lot of times heavy-handed, but it's good. They really do it good.
Well, especially if you're in the mindset of being empathetic, that's kind of forces you to be in that position just because of how much control you have on these characters' fates.
Yes, and so it is very tearjerker. But on the flip side of that, you feel so good when you actually save these people and help them progress in their story, and you feel like you've erased something really bad from the world. Like, we've all had those times where like something's really bad's happened to us and you just be like, oh my, I just wish I could wake up and just find out this was all a dream and it never happened. And that's kind of what you're doing. You're getting to erase these things that just feel like horrible storylines that you just wish never happened, and the characters in the story are none the wiser that this alternate reality
could have happened to them.
Right, exactly. Now, actually, some of the mediocre endings play out, so like you don't feel punished. Let's say like you put things together the wrong way, and you hit the OK button, and you want to find out if you picked the right ending or not, and they'll give you like a little revelation of what happens. And sometimes it's just as bad, but you know what? There's no consequence. The game just says, here's what the rating you got for that ending. Try it again if you want. Sometimes even a mediocre ending's enough to progress the story for certain characters. You could always just keep trying, and if you could just brute force it. Or the game has options for hints. So sometimes maybe you just don't see the way that you're supposed to solve a certain story puzzle. Maybe there's an angle that they expect you to see that you just don't see. You could turn on hints and they'll like highlight in red certain words that are like spelling out for you what you need to try to have happen. Some of the bad endings even will give you information about characters that maybe you wouldn't even have found out if you never got this certain bad ending. Like there's one character who just seemed like this innocent victim bystander in one story, but in one of like the mediocre endings, he turned out to be like a psychopath who like this innocent bystander turned out to be like, someone who ended up whacking all the bad guys in a certain scenario. And I was like, okay, well, I mean, it's good that he saved my life, but I now know that he's a serial killer or something like that. So
okay. So there's a lot of dimensions to all the characters that you control
Yes.
and run into, even.
Yes, there's a lot of characters. I've unlocked storylines for about, I'd say, 8 or 9 characters, and it looks like there's room for a lot more. So I think they're going to keep adding characters as we go. They're all pretty memorable, all pretty well fleshed out. Now, I will say for people, I want people to try out visual novels, I say, and I think this is a good game to try out in the genre if you've ever been curious and you think this gameplay idea is solid. But I do have to warn people, it's not for the squeamish, and it's not for the, weak at heart.
Yes, it is rated M.
Mm-hmm.
The official Nintendo page for this game has an age gate, so just think about it that way.
Right. I mean, it's really dark, some of these storylines, and it's not just tearjerker stuff. It's like pretty uncomfortable stuff, right? It's stuff that you might not want to read about. So if any of that makes you squeamish, anything out there like that, I would suggest not. But if you think you're still into it and the subject matter doesn't turn you off and you want to kind of play a visual novel that lets you actually push through the plot and with your skill and this puzzle solving and imagination, I found this to be a really refreshing take on the genre. And since it's broken up in these chapters, it's very easy to play in small chunks. You can literally pick it up, pick a chapter, pick a character that you want to solve a problem for. It takes 5 minutes to read their story, and then it could take you another 5 to 10 minutes. Sometimes you'll see the answer right away, and you'll just figure it out, and you'll be done with this chapter. Sometimes you'll
have to take a moment to really contemplate.
Yeah. The game is pretty serious about, it tries to push that it wants you to pay attention to certain words. There's even a part where it says, in orange letters, never miss or always pay attention to orange sentences, right? And then the next screen, it'll say, so what was the last 3 words I said that were in orange? And if you get it wrong, it resets the game.
Whoa, that's intense.
It doesn't autosave. He's just like, I'm not really trying to mess with you, but you have to play that scene over and pay attention. I want to impress upon you that it's important to pay attention to any words we highlight, because I think they don't want you to
get stuck.
Yeah, exactly. They're very aware that you could get stuck in a game like this, and they want to make sure you know the rules of the game.
Okay.
There also seems to be some meta plot with you and who you are, and the little doggy spirit that is helping you. That's your assistant in the meta narrative of the game. And they're kind of alluding to some things. I'm not gonna spoil any of that stuff because I think that's pretty interesting too. But there's something to who you are and why you're doing what you're doing and why you're involved with, fixing people's fates.
Okay, and that's kind of a recurring mystery that you can potentially solve by the end of the end of the game.
Yes.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And it looks like this game costs about $15. Do you think it's worth that price?
$15. I mean, look, it's worth the price of entry if you're even halfway thinking it's something that might interest you and that you can handle the subject matter. Yeah, it's worth a try. I honestly can't think of another game that's more likely to garner the interest of someone who's been wanting to. And honestly, I want people to play because I want to talk to people about it. Oh
my gosh.
Well, no, it's like a book. I'm reading a book, and anytime you watch a good movie or you read a good book, you want to talk to people, you want to analyze, and you can share stories of oh, did you see this ending? No, I didn't even figure out how to get that ending to that story. Oh, well, if you do this, and then you find out this secret. So there's a lot of opportunity to share information with other players. If other people who've read through the story, they might not have seen the same things you have.
Yeah, well, there you go. Perhaps you will inspire someone to pick this game up and talk with us.
That's it.
Maybe on our Discord chat.
I love that it has a warning when you turn it on. It does say this game is best played in dark spaces with a box of tissues.
Oh, it's explicit about it.
Yes, it's they're very explicit. You're gonna cry. Did you see Titanic in theaters when it came out?
No, I did not.
Did you recall that being a thing where I remember when I went to see it, everybody was the big question was, did you cry at the movie? Because it's a big tearjerker, and so
right.
That was kind of the question everyone who went to see it asked. of each other. Like, oh, did you cry? Or
Gotcha.
when did you cry? You know, that kind of thing. That's what it is for me. Which chapter in this, I want to know, if any, makes you tear up. And it kind of lets you know what kind of person they are.
For Casey, it was the cat chapter.
It was, man. Honestly, no. I mean, there's a few scenes that got me choked up, but I lost it with the cat chapter. I was done.
Yeah, you know, it's something about animals and cats being anthropomorphized, and you know, it can get to you. You can really attach to those types of characters.
Definitely. All right, so JV.
Yes.
Let's get to the party. What's going on with the Mario Party? What's the full name of this one?
Super Mario Party.
That's it.
Yes. So, to lighten the mood quite a bit more, I played a lot of Mario Party this past weekend with a bunch of friends, and I gotta say, it's a ton of fun.
Awesome.
You know, Mario Party's always been a ton of fun. Some games less so than others. For me, it kind of felt like the more recent Mario Parties were getting kind of, not particularly spectacular. It kind of felt samey and stale.
Okay. Have you played all of them in the past, or?
I've played the last one I think I played was Mario Party 8. Mm-hmm. That one was on the Wii, and it was a fine experience. But Super Mario Party, it's great. It really takes what we love about Mario Party as a whole and polishes it quite a bit. This pulling up this game, it looks really striking. The animations for each of the characters are very vivid and expressive, and it just looks good on this generation of consoles.
How many characters are we working with here?
So it does have quite a large stable of characters. I don't have the specific number offhand, but you can play as the classic Mario, Luigi, Peach, Daisy, but you can also play as Waluigi, Shy Guy, Koopa Troopa. You can play as Boo or Dry Bones. You can even play as Monty Mole and a Goomba. So there's a plethora of characters you can choose from. And this game actually makes that character choice matter quite a bit more than in past games. Yeah, so I'm going to go through just my initial impressions. Then I really, it would serve the listeners best if I go through the main Mario Party mode and all the different minor modes that are available here, because there are quite a number of options, and I think it feels like there are a lot more options than almost any other Mario Party that I've played in recent memory. So, what I thought was weird right off the bat was that the game is Joy-Con only. You can't play with the Pro Controller, you can't play it in standard handheld mode, you can't use the grip. It's purely Joy-Con only.
I guess that was a thing of controversy, I guess, when it first was announced, but I guess it turns out it makes a lot of sense, doesn't it, though, in the end?
Yeah, I was kind of turned off by it at first. I was like, I kind of want to play how I want to play. But giving that consistent control scheme for each player means that Nintendo can design minigames with that consistency in mind. Mm-hmm. So once you have that Joy-Con, they use all of the different tricks and features of the Joy-Con to really pump out some interesting minigames. Now, I believe this game was developed by ND Cube, and that's they really handled the Joy-Con controls well on this. I never felt like the control scheme of a minigame was too out of my grasp.
And even with the half Joy-Con type thing, have you ever had a problem with your Joy-Con like analog stick being on the left or right?
No, it was never really a problem because usually the stick is on the left regardless of the position. But sometimes some of the minigames didn't even utilize the Joy-Con controller itself or the control stick itself. Now, your starting menu has an option that lets you play with two consoles. But even across between those two consoles, the maximum total number of players is 4.
Okay.
That was a little weird. I thought you could go a bit more than 4. I thought it could reach 8, but no, the max is 4, and that's something you kind of have to plan for.
Okay. So a party of 4 people at a time, still, yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's standard. There were a few Mario Party games that could extend to 8 in some modes, but we luckily had about 9 players at our party, and what we did to compensate was to have each character controlled by 2 players.
Yeah, that seems like a good solution.
They would alternate in mini games, and then one team had to alternate between 3 players. So
gotcha.
That's kind of how we divided it up, and it works out pretty well. Now, there are a lot of modes, but the main mode for Super Mario Party is the Mario Party mode. It's the classic Mario Party gameplay where you have your character, you roll dice to move around on the board, gather as many coins as possible to buy stars, which is essentially your victory points. And at the very end of the game, you count whoever has the most stars, and that player is the winner of the party.
Okay.
That classic gameplay is retained here.
How long is one round of this game?
I don't know specifically, but each round consists of every player rolling a dice, moving, getting the effect of that spot, switching to the next player, then they have their turn until everyone's had their turn. And at the end of the round, you play a mini game where you're paired up based on what color of spots you landed.
I what I meant is how long is an entire, let's say, playthrough, one whole map of the game?
They have a set number of rounds that you can set, and it actually gives you an estimated length of time that it would take. So you have the 10 round setting, which is about 60 minutes, the 15 round, which is about 75 minutes, and then the 20 round, which is 90 minutes, or something like that. It'll take you about 1 to 2 hours to complete, depending on the number of rounds that you input.
Okay.
And that's really cool because it lets you customize the game to really fit into your party's schedule, which is a very convenient feature, and I think it's relatively standard and should be expected from this type of game.
All right, that's pretty cool.
Now, the boards themselves are actually much smaller than the originals. Some of the Mario Party boards got really big with multiple tiers and the map stretched out huge. In this game, they really compacted the board so that you're really going to run into other players and run into the same spots a bit more often. That also means that you have a much easier time lapping around the board, and it means that you have a lot more choice as to where you can potentially go.
Okay, so it's a lot more interaction than with the players, since you're all never that far. It's not one player who's on one side of the map and all 3 are clustered on the other.
Right. It really brings the party a bit closer, and some people might not like that. Some people might like the bigger maps with all the weird pathways and varied turns. It has a little bit of that here, but it is compressed quite a bit more. But what I thought was the coolest element of this game is that there are custom dice per character.
Okay, how's that work?
Yeah, so every character can choose to use the standard 1d6 die, but each character also has a special die dedicated to themselves that has different numbered sides. Mario might have an alternative dice, which gives him like a 1, 2, 4, 4, 4, 7 side. So you're more likely going to hit a 4 on his dice. And while it's not as high as a 6, that dice is a more reliable number. And that lets you kind of decide which dice to pick based on what type of spot you want to land on.
I gotcha. So it's also a little bit like it has that higher potential. If you have to get to 7, that's the only die that's going to do it for you. Whereas, but there's no chance of getting a 5 or a 6 on it. So
right, and there's a lot of different permutations of this. For example, Mario has that 1, 3, 3, 5, 6. So it's all pretty even, but you're more than likely going to get at least a 3. Mm-hmm. A character like Bowser, he has a 10, a 9, and an 8. But he also has a 1 and 2 spots that don't move him, but reduce your coins by 3. So you get really high spikes on his die, or potentially really low tragic numbers. And
so you always have the option of using the regular die or their custom die.
Yes. And I thought this was such a brilliant way to really customize your experience. You can, as weird as it sounds, you can be like a Diddy Kong or a Monty Mole main in this game. And it's pretty interesting to see how that played out.
That's pretty cool.
Now, throughout the game, you can actually recruit allies, which gives you a bonus to each of your dice rolls from that point on. So if I'm playing as Mario and I run into an ally spot, I can potentially get Peach to be on my side. And from that point on, every single one of my rolls has an additional 1 in 3 modifier based on whatever Peach rolls. But now that I have Peach as an ally, I can also choose to use her die. And she has a pretty decent die. She has a 0, but she has a bunch of 4s and a 6. So it evens out to a really good die.
Now, let me ask you, how important is it to get a certain die roll or land on a certain spot in this game? Is it that imperative, or is it just like, whatever are the things that you have to really avoid maybe?
That's actually a really good question. There are, obviously there are the standard spots which it gives you normal coins, but there are special event spots that triggers either really good events or really bad events. So perhaps you want to avoid getting into those super bad spots because it's on your 5 to 7 range. So maybe you want to stick to a die that rolls lower just so you can avoid that. Or if you really need to get to that star spot and you need to roll as high as possible, you can go with Bowser's very risky die just to go for the gold, potentially, regardless of whether it could be tragic or not. So there's a little bit of strategy, and it's a lot more than I expected with a Mario Party game.
Yeah, it's pretty cool rather than just the same old, like the dice rolling was always kind of perfunctory before, where now it's like, it's a little bit of thought at least, which is enough to give people playing this kind of game a little more engagement.
Meat to it. And what's cool is that this type of system is really easy to pick up for casual players. They're like, people who don't play video games know how to roll a dice. They probably play Yahtzee or Bunko or whatever. And they know, and this type of concept is so easy to grasp to beginners. And it's kind of fun seeing non-gamers try to strategize a little bit with all these different dice choices. And I thought that was so cool.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing I'd probably do that. I'd want to think about the, what are the odds of me getting where I want? Where's the risk reward or the potential loss? I want to feel like I'm playing something that's akin to a board game if I'm in there, even if it only gives me like a 5% advantage in the long run. It's,
Yeah, and it really, it's a really good element, and considering the size of the board, direction and planning does matter a bit more, just because all of those spots are a lot more accessible to all the players.
Gameplay-wise, how different are the maps? Or are they just, how aesthetic is it versus how much it changes how the game plays out?
Honestly, the maps themselves play out pretty similarly. There is hazards, there's stuff that moves, there's pathways that lock out sometimes. It's standard Mario Party fare, just a lot smaller. And with this added dice element, each individual move does matter a lot more.
Gotcha.
Now, another cool element of the allies is that they sometimes appear in mini-games to help you out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So there was this hot potato minigame where, you're passing a bob-omb and it's slowly about to explode. And if it explodes on you, your character is out. And then the ring gets closer to all the people who are still in, and so on and so forth. The more allies you have, the more characters on your side are participating in this minigame. So there's a higher chance of you to survive hot potato overall. It's just different ways that these allies help you out in both the board game and the mini games. I thought that was super cool.
Yeah, anything that gets more faces involved. It's like whenever you saw a random me show up in Mario Kart or something, or any of those games, it's like, hey, there's a person, there's a face. You have such a great cast of all these Mario characters. Yeah, why not cram as many of them as you can into a single game?
Yeah, totally. And it just makes you really feel like they're helping you out in multiple dimensions. Now, the balancing also does seem a little bit more tamed down. There's not really that many, or if any, I didn't remember seeing any star stealing abilities. It's mostly just coin stealing abilities, but not to insane degrees. Mm-hmm. And the different items you have, like the golden warp pipe, teleports you straight to where the star is. So You can intercept a star from someone, but you don't necessarily steal them. And there's some items that let you modify your opponent's dice or modify your dice. But it's nothing incredibly crazy like some of the other Mario parties have been.
All right, let's focus in now on the actual mini games that are thrown in there. How did you feel about the selection of them? Now they're all brand new games, I understand. So how do they measure up as a ensemble to other games?
All of the mini games feel really solid. I never felt like any of the mini games were terrible or unfun to play, and they took advantage of the Joy-Cons really easily. Right before you play a minigame, it shows you what you would think to be a video of the minigame itself, just so to showcase how the minigame works.
Like a little demo video.
Yeah, but that's how it worked in previous Mario parties. But in this Mario Party, that demo video is an actual demo of the game. So as soon as the minigame instructions load, you can actually demo the game without having to load to a separate screen.
Okay.
That means that makes the practice round and the real minigame round so much more seamless and saves quite a bit of time.
Cool. All right. Very nice.
Yeah.
Now, overall, though, are there any proportion or any number that you're like, these are the games I really want to show up, versus are there any games that you're like, oh, this one again, not so crazy about?
There are a couple. One of the minigames that I really liked are the ones where you're not necessarily out or not necessarily eliminated immediately. There's a minigame where you're collecting coins and you're at the same time you're simultaneously trying to dodge electric bolts coming from the sky.
Okay.
And everyone's just collecting as many coins and getting shocked while they're doing it. And that game felt fun to me because you weren't eliminated and there wasn't any specific placing, but you still felt like you were progressing and it was helping you out in your whole game. Some mini games have really fun elements. Like there's one where you're actually twisting the Joy-Con to get some sort of puzzle into the correct piece. There was a mini game where you're moving the Joy-Con in and out with a magnifying glass to put a picture into focus, and once you get it into focus, it works out. There's 2v2 mini games where you're trying to work with a partner to design to draw the right strings through pegs to get a pattern, a specific pattern.
Okay. Oh, so there are 2v2 even though they got rid of the 1v3 ones.
Yeah, they left 2v2 games and they have the free-for-alls. So you're always paired up with someone, and someone's always going to be on your side. But yeah, the minigames themselves are a lot of fun overall. None of them are super noteworthy to me, but none of them felt like duds. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, that's good. So you're never like, oh, okay, it's this one. All right, let's just get through this. Like, you're never disappointed. It's always fairly happy to ecstatic over what game showed up.
Yeah. And even if someone's somewhat lukewarm on a specific minigame, the menus are a lot quicker in and out of the minigames themselves. So the experience isn't going to drag on for very long.
I was curious. They showed us that survival game where you're like catching the fish, and it was the co-op one, the one that's purely co-op.
Yeah.
How does that work into the game? Where did that show up?
So those are actually completely separate modes from the classic Mario Party mode. Obviously, the classic Mario Party mode is the primary meat of this game. But there is the River Survival, which is a fully co-op experience. You need to coordinate your movements together with teammates. It's fun to actually be in a full co-op experience with whoever you're playing with. Some parties just don't want to get competitive, and this is a potential mode for that.
Okay.
The problem is that there aren't really that many pure co-op minigames, but it is a nice diversion. You're going to get a lot more repeats more quickly.
That's it. Okay, so it's just a mode that you all try to beat together or fail as a team.
That's kind of a recurring theme for all of these modes. You don't really get anything for winning. You just get the satisfaction of winning, which is, it's fine for what it is.
Did you do any online?
Oh, yes. I did do the online Mario-thon, and I gotta say I was a little disappointed by the online. Yeah. There's only 10 available minigames, and that was it. That was what surprised me the most.
And it's the same ones? It doesn't like rotate, or
It
it's
does
not
rotate.
like Splatoon where it's a different 10 on a different day or something?
No, it's the same 10 minigames.
Huh.
If you guys don't know, Mariothon is essentially a 5 minigame marathon where you play one minigame, then another, then another, then another, and then you rack up as many points in each minigame based on your performance. And at the end of the Mariothon, whoever has the most points is the winner. That is the mode that they use online, and I actually like Mariothon. Some people don't like that setup, but I actually like it. What the disappointing element is that there's only 10 minigames.
Yeah. So, I guess they had to pick ones that are just the most easily, I don't know, adapted for online. But yeah, I feel like it's good. It sounds like it's good if you just need to get some gameplay in when you don't have people over your house or people to play with that you know. But at the same time, it's like, a little limited. All right.
Yeah, and it's a bit tricky because it's kind of the mode that people would gravitate towards if they don't have any friends over. Mm-hmm. And if you just don't have any friends locally that you can play with on a consistent basis, it might turn you off from this game entirely. So the promise of online in Super Mario Party was really appealing to those folks who don't have a consistent group of local friends to play. And it's actually a lot more disappointing than I thought initially.
Okay, all right. Well, I mean, what about the regular online? Did you not bother playing like online regular board game mode?
There is no online regular board game mode.
Okay.
That's why it's a bit of a problem. I can kind of understand why they would want to refrain from doing a full-fledged board game mode online, just because those board game modes can take 60, 90 to 90 minutes to 2 hours to complete. And
I guess, if someone got cut out after the 75-minute point, you'd be very frustrated.
Yes, and that would kind of ruin the experience. But the fact that there's so few minigames available in Mariothon is really the biggest problem. I feel like if they had the full suite of 80 minigames in online Mariothon, that would actually be satisfying for me. That would work. I would actually play that a lot more often. But yeah, that aspect is disappointing.
But overall, how satisfied were you with this title?
I was satisfied. Overall, I think this game is such a good... it's such a good representation of the Mario Party franchise. There's partner party modes, there's soundstage modes that has like a bit of a rhythm game to it. There's a challenge road mode that lets you marathon through all the minigames. Overall, it's a good, meaty package, but you're not going to go into this with online in mind. And
okay.
That was kind of a big selling point to this. And I do feel like it burned a lot of players. But if you know you're going to get a relatively consistent group of friends to play Mario Party with, this is the game to get. Even if you're gonna bring this game out maybe once a month, I feel like it's worth it even then.
Okay. And of course there is, though, you can play one player just as some way to enjoy it without having people over.
You can play one player with bots, but I didn't really think that was incredibly satisfying.
No, it's not, but I mean, it's at least some way to maybe want to practice a mini game before the next party.
Yeah, that's true. Though you'd have like a leg up over all your friends, so you're just a bit of a jerk if you do that.
All right, well, this has been interesting, and I think it sets up a lot of questions and ideas for us to discuss in the Switch focus area of this, where we'll probably dive more into Mario Party and other party games. So, are you good to shift gears into that now, or is there anything else you want to say?
Let's just dive into the Switch focus at this point. Let's do it.
All right. All right, we're into the Switch focus now, and we wanted to talk about the party game genre as a whole. So obviously, Mario Party is going to be a big inspiration for what we're talking about. But, I mean, I think it's important just to kind of maybe start off here. Before we talk about what we like about it, what makes them great, and maybe some of our own personal favorites outside of the Mario Party genre, JV, why don't you set the ground rules at least for us? What is a party game, or what just makes it one? Not necessarily a great one, just what separates it from another type of game?
Now, I don't want to be incredibly definitive because the definition of party games is a little bit subjective. But to me, party games are a set of games that are designed to bring multiple players together on one activity. Whether that's a bunch of mini games, whether it's one big game. This type of game is designed for a larger group of folks to play together.
Yes, I think that's the main thing, is the playing together and having everyone involved as much as possible at all times. I generally don't consider most board games very party game-ish because it's usually one player makes a turn and maybe he chooses a player to interact with at a given point, but there's usually 3 people or 4 people at a table who are not really involved once action goes a certain way. Mario Party does get, you said, it's very quickly everyone makes their role and move, but very quickly everyone now is playing some simultaneous thing, and maybe you're interested in what they're doing on their turn because they might determine the nature of that joint game at the end of the round.
Party games generally encourage social interaction, so that's something that I feel like is really important to define a party game over any other type of game, really.
Yeah. So what other party games do you think you can, come to mind that are available on Switch right now?
So I would probably classify the Jackbox games as party games. Yeah. Those are its own collection of games that let players really interact with each other in interesting ways, and I think that encompasses the genre of party games the best.
Yeah. I think that is very much one of the most pure versions of them. What I think makes also a great aspect to a party game is the ability for people to enjoy it even if you're not one of the 2, 3, or 4 players. Right. Like you watch Jackbox. If you're watching Jackbox Party Pack, you can still guess or try to answer trivia questions or participate, try to guess. I know there's a lot of secret answer things in there, but you can try to, figure out the answers to the puzzles that are on the screen or the questions, even if you're not playing. Like when you watch Family Feud on TV, you can still participate even if you're not one of the contestants.
Right. And even with something like Mario Party, it's really fun as a spectator to see all the really wacky spots that your characters land on, and it's just fun to see all of your friends duke it out in the various mini games. It's just fun, and that's really where party games shine.
I think some of the other ones that are worth mentioning, even if I don't necessarily crazy about some of them, 1-2 Switch. I think that kind of counts, even though it focuses on these 2-player games. They're fast enough that they're just meant to be passed on and get the next person up on there and involve everyone. And they have all the stuff on the screen, mostly just as a way to frame the players so everyone can watch your friend do the silly, showdown gunslinger thing. And it gets everyone involved, and it's quick fire, so everyone can take a turn at it. So even though that wasn't a game I highly recommended, it does count as a party game, and some people probably enjoy it for that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I really, really want to stress just how much party games can make or break a console. If you think about it, something like Wii Sports or Wii Play, those are kind of party games that you can gather as a group, and that defined the Wii for quite a while.
Wii Sports, and that is on my list here, I'm looking at it's personally my favorite party game. It involves multiple people. It's easy to play. It's easy to pick up. You can get a variety of different activities, and it's no pressure. You play a round of golf. You maybe do some bowling. You can put more. It'd be very easy. I think you can only play 4 players in that, but it'd be very easy to have one like that let 6 players queue up in a single match of bowling or something like that.
Or you can just, take turns playing.
Yeah, basically what people did. Right. Everyone just took turns, rolling the ball, or I forget what the later on we had the archery one and the motion plus.
And if you just think about it, there are some consoles out there that are dedicated party game machines. there are some casual gamers who only bust out their Wii or bust out their Wii U or bust out their Switch during party settings. And that's a perfectly valid gaming style, I think.
I mean, that's why I run the SwitchFest events. I kind of want those to be a place to consistently get a party game atmosphere and play some of these 4-player games. Like, that's the only time, like something like Overcooked, right? You were a big fan of that.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. I don't have anyone that I'm going to play with that on a regular basis, but if I bring that to a SwitchFest, I can grab any other 2 or 3 people and we can start enjoying that there. I even consider something like Mario Kart, especially when you play it in like the short battle modes. That's definitely party game.
Yeah, I would 100% count Mario Kart as a party game. Party games aren't narrowly defined as just minigame compilations. They can be a game that can be played in a party setting, regardless of the style of game it is.
Yeah. And the last one I think I'll throw out there, I guess also the Just Dance or any of rhythm game is actually a pretty, I guess more like the dancey ones, like a DDR style one, because everyone enjoys watching one person make a fool of themselves in front of the group.
Yeah, and even with Just Dance specifically, you don't have to be holding the Joy-Con controllers to dance along with a game. Everyone in the party can dance together, and while it's not necessarily tracking your movements, it's still a fun party setting, and that's just as valid a gaming experience as something hardcore like Doom or Wolfenstein.
And the last one I definitely want to throw out there, it's one of my first games I played on the Switch, was Snipper Clips. I thought Snipper Clips worked great in this setting. 4 players on the screen, but if I was playing it and we had a 4-player game going, people watching would be shouting out ideas like, oh, wait, why don't you try cutting him into this shape? You guys got to work together or push this that way. And people can shoot ideas out to help the players solve the problems because there was so many ways to invent solutions in that game, so it ended up being a pretty decent party game option. And
I brought Snipper Clips to a non-gamer family function,
and
it's really interesting seeing I was playing with a couple of cousins who are kind of familiar with technology, so they got the controls pretty handled well, but on the peripheral of us gaming, you could see like an aunt who's not a gamer be like, oh, you should try that, or oh, you should go do that, why are you guys being stupid, it's so obvious what the solution is. And they're not gamers, so they wouldn't be able to mechanically solve the puzzle, but if they got the puzzle from a visual perspective, it's them participating still.
Now, does a party game only work in person? Do you think a party game could be successful as an online style of game?
Oh, absolutely. Overcooked 2 has online multiplayer, and I get the same joy of Overcooked's mayhem as I would in person.
Okay.
As long as you have that vocal element, like if you're on a Discord voice chat, then you can very easily replicate that social element of party games that is pivotal to this style of game.
Okay, that's actually true. Yeah, if you can augment it, I think if you can do that, it does add it. Because when I'm playing one of those games and there isn't that talking, there's not the laughing, the jokes, the panic-stricken, like, wait, we need more over here. I think that takes it all away. But yeah, as soon as you add that alone flips a switch that can turn a lot of games into a party game that otherwise wouldn't be. So that's an important part.
I do want to set the caveat that obviously it's not a direct one-to-one. If I could play any Overcooked or any party game in person with a bunch of you SwitchCast folks, I know I would probably enjoy it infinitely more than if I played it online through Discord. As much as you guys are awesome on voice chat with each other, just having that physical connection, being able to high five or fist bump or throw stuff at that elements of interactions, it would be missing in the online setting. That would be more fulfilling to me in the end.
Now, as we're both avid tabletop gamers, I know that party games are a huge staple of the tabletop scene, more so in recent years, I feel, than before. There's definitely some games that are on there that I think this could almost even count as our, like, system switch for the week. There has to be some types of those games that haven't made the Switch yet, but maybe could offer something to the console that, hasn't been explored. So what's some of the most popular party games that you've, had in your groups?
One of the big party games that we play in with my group is what is The Resistance. It supports 10 players. It's has a lot of intrigue and deception, deceiving your friends. It's essentially a mafia or werewolf style game with a few twists that I find to be a lot better. And that style of game is generally missing on the console.
It's a good point, because you know what? Actually, one of those type of games made the move to mobile, and it could possibly make the move to Switch, and it's in that genre. What's that one where you have the two identities? Every player gets the 2 role cards, and you can guess which role someone is. Coup, yeah. Coup is on iPhone right now. It just lacks any communication, which holds it up totally, I think, from becoming the interactive, chatty, deduction / party game that I think it can be normally. But I think if they put it on Switch, maybe, and either we got chat through Discord, or they put it on the app, or they should maybe integrated it into the game itself. That's one of those type of games, a secret identity game, that could work. And I just realized I didn't really explain the game to the listeners, but long story short, everyone has 2 secret identity cards, and they give you powers that you're allowed to use, but anyone on their turn can just bluff that they are a certain character and use a certain ability to either get money or to eliminate players, etc. And if someone calls you out on your bluff, then you lose that one of your identity cards, and if you lose both of them, you're out. Or you can, just accumulate enough money to get points to win. So everyone's talking and trying to figure out who has which cards in their secret selection. And there's a lot of intrigue and lying and, talking going on.
Oh, yeah.
So it's,
there are a lot of tabletop party games out there that involve lying to your friends, which can be fun in a way.
You know what would be, though? I think another good option, though, that could really benefit from the Switch and or 2 Switches set up and would streamline, I think, or maybe even multiple Switches. I am really fond of Captain Sonar now.
Oh, we've been playing that during our lunch games at work. Captain Sonar is so much fun.
Yeah, so this is an 8-player game, so I think, it's usually about 8 players, right?
Players,
at max. Right. So we know that Switches can connect up to 8 players, so it works. And the way it goes, you'd be broken up into 2 teams. You'd have like a captain, an engineer for each team, and so on. And each one kind of has to manage a certain part of the ship, which in the physical game is it's like a whiteboard, right? They all have like their own little whiteboards.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you'd have to like mark off certain things on it, and the captain shouts or the navigator would say what direction they move, and someone has to track where they are on the map. And anyway, everyone's doing all these different functions, and then you're trying to find out where on the map the other team is, and you hopefully shoot them with a torpedo or something. But there's a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of options, or a lot of potential rather, for people to either mess up and accidentally cheat, or just for, things to not work as intended. If you have the switches for every player, and they're all sharing data amongst each other, it can tell you if someone oh no, you can't move there yet because the engineer hasn't fixed the rudder problem that showed up or something that. And I think that, it could be really cool. And it could all the effects you hit them and lights go crazy. And
even going out of the tabletop realm, there are games like Space Team that has that similar style of gameplay where everyone is doing somewhat of a mini game to collaborate and make sure their ship as a whole stays together during their journey.
Yeah.
And that's a ton of fun.
Yeah, or like Space Cadets even, which is, it's a very similar style of game, but everyone has their own little puzzle game that they're doing to kind of work together with.
Yeah, and even the game like Lovers in a Dangerous Space-Time.
Oh,
that
yes.
is, I would 100% count that as a party game, even though it is, kind of a platforming game as well.
I think that I'm ashamed I didn't remember to mention that one. That is an excellent choice. That was a great 4-player, and I totally consider that a party game because, yeah, that is like an animated version of all those games we've been mentioning, with everyone's running around a ship, trying to maintain, certain functions of it, put up the shields, fire lasers, and shouting communications back and forth. And it's just fun to watch other people to watch them do it.
Yeah, because I remember playing this in a casual setting as well, and I saw like aunts being like, oh, hey, watch out for that, oh, watch out for that too, oh, you're about to get hit by that, that type of stuff. And they're not playing, they're not participating, but they're still in it with us in a way, which is really cool.
Yeah, I think both of us kind of touch upon that as one of the most important, or at least a really powerful element to the genre. The ability for anyone, even those not playing, to be invested and just to even feel like they're participating in some way. An unlimited player base, I guess you could say, almost. It makes a great one, I think. That's how I would put it there. But before we ask the community what they think on this, are there any other key elements that you think belong in the perfect party game, or one that you would like to see?
It's really tricky, just because there are so many factors that make a good party game, and having a combination of different elements might make a good party game for party game A, but that same combination might not work for a different party game. So it's very dependent. But to me, what I look forward to most in party games is a snappy variety of experiences. Like, let's say WarioWare, where you play micro games back to back to back. Mario Party, where you play varied amounts of mini games. Even Lovers in a Dangerous Space-Time, where you go through different maps. Let's say The Resistance, where you have different permutations of character allegiances, so it's not the same experience every time.
Okay, that's good. I was actually, I just remembered there was an idea I wanted to throw out there for a possible party game, and
let's hear it.
Those kind of games where it's literally a game that's supposed to be played at a party where people draw a card and like one person is the assassin of the party.
Like Two Rooms and a Boom.
Kind of like that, right? But like you're supposed to have like an actual, like, this is just going on in the background of a normal party,
right?
Where, all right, now he's the assassin, and throughout the party there's like some gesture, like he's supposed to put his hand on people on their shoulder, and that's how he's killed them, right? And he has to do that. But one other person at the party is the detective, and he's secretly trying to catch whoever the murderer is doing the thing that marks people as dead. So if it's the, put your hand on someone's shoulder, if that's how you like assassinate someone at the party is trying to keep an eye out for that person, and if he ever catches them, and he can say, I caught you, you're the murderer, and that's the game.
There's
and other people are just
game like that out there. I'm trying to remember what it's called. It's a card game you play outside of the card game, or outside of whatever game you're playing, and each person has like a different objective that they're looking for.
Yeah, like that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Now, I'm thinking of a game like that the Switch could do with the Joy-Cons, because they're such cool, multifaceted things. And I can imagine like a game where a bunch of people that in the party have to keep the Joy-Con on them at all times, but let's say one of them is a certain role. Let's say one of them is like, whatever, the criminal, the jewel thief, let's just say. He has to hide, like his will go off and vibrate at certain times at the party that only he knows, and he has to make sure that no one catches it when it goes off, so other people know he's the jewel thief, let's say.
Yeah.
And like him disappearing is him like stealing it, and like maybe the screen on the TV like throws in little curveballs for the game every so often, that kind of thing. I don't know, it's just an idea I had where like for a party game like that I
actually feel like that would be super cool and something kind of special to something like the Switch. I think it would work.
One thing that they don't have yet that I feel like is one of those very popular party game styles, though, is escape the room games. That's really big in tabletop form now. There's a lot of those take home and
Unlock
set up your own.
As one of them from Fantasy Flight.
I could see one like that coming to Switch with like some sort of 3-dimensional thing, or people all having to use their Joy-Cons to like solve puzzles together. I don't know. It's a little tricky, but I feel like that's something they can do. And I think that's a frontier that might come.
Oh, I would love that. That's definitely something I would play.
Yeah. I mean, if they have that game where you have to defuse a bomb together, I think they can do Escape the Room.
Now, when it comes to our community's contributions, there are lots of comments that I thought were really good in the subject. Now, from CJ Thorpe, he said, "It's got to be Jackbox Party Pack. To me, a great party game is something that anyone can play. Can be played while drinking, smoking, whatever. It encourages talking and getting the whole group involved. The Jackbox games tick all these boxes. 8 people can play, and even more can get involved with the spectating options. Non-gamers can play as there aren't any complicated controls." So I think Jackbox Party Pack, if you're really just looking for a party game, that is a low-budget option that has a plethora of games that you can sink your teeth into. I like Mario Party because it has a fixed amount of time that you can play. And
that's true.
And Mario Party has that nostalgia element. People growing up as maybe like a millennial or someone growing up with the Nintendo 64. It's been around for a while. It has that nostalgia element too. But cool. Jackbox is a great option, and they even play it at conventions sometimes with massive groups of people.
Two Button Crew had an answer I liked here. So they mentioned on Twitter, Runbow Deluxe is a really good time on Switch. Super simple Joy-Con controls and easy game to pick up, fun to master, really good for one-on-one rivalries, and enjoyable mayhem with more players. So one little word choice he added there was the mayhem, right? What I think adds to a lot of good party games is the randomness factor, right? That kind of acts contrary to people who master a game, right? Someone gets really good at something, like Smash is mentioned by people as a good party game, but the thing about that is games like that where someone can get really good and just always dominate and win, I think that kind of deflates the fun a little bit for people who are casuals, right?
That's why when you want to set up Smash in a more party setting, you want to turn on all the hazards, you want to turn on the items, give that element of randomness so that it's not just a pure test of skill.
Exactly. Once you throw in randomness and now something can happen that anyone can win, even the guy who doesn't know what he's doing, that makes it fun just to have the chance and not the guy who's just good at it. Sometimes you're not looking to play a game where it's about who's the best player. It's just about having fun, trying your best, and, seeing what fate deals you.
Oh, absolutely. So, another comment is from Peter Watts. He says, 8-player Bomberman is immensely fun, but a surprise hit with friends has been Astro Duel Deluxe, which plays a bit like 4-player Asteroids. It's so good. That's actually a really good one too. Astro Duel was one of the games that I reviewed a while back, and that could work as a really good party game because the controls are so simple, and Asteroids is such an easy to understand concept. Astro Duel is a really good one, I think.
Yeah, no, a lot of people just know from the classic game already how that works.
And the same applies to Bomberman. Bomberman is a great party game as well, just because there is a lot of random elements to it with all the map hazards. And there's really funny, silly moments where you can blow yourself up with a bomb or get crushed by a falling block, that type of stuff. That's a good recommendation as well.
Feora's Dragon wrote to us on Twitter, the party game, he puts in quotes, I've spent the most time on is Mario Kart Double Dash. Me and my cousins have played through every track in order every time we have gotten together, probably since the game came out. The one thing a party game needs to be great is the potential to screw over your friends. It needs that small pinch of unfairness, the blue shell gold hammer in Smash that decides to spawn right on top of you, the roulette wheel spin that lets you steal a Mario Party star on the last turn, etc. to give it that kick. Unfairness, true. Like I said, I think the only thing that holds Mario Kart back is even with things like those blue shells, I feel like they have not, at least in the new one, I don't know, maybe it's different in Double Dash, but I felt like in the newer games, at least, if someone gets really far ahead, that's it, they've just won. And I feel like it's not as random as even chaotic Smash Brothers can be. I feel like if someone gets really good at Mario Kart and a bunch of casuals are playing, the casuals just don't have a chance anymore, and he just gets so far away, he's not even interacting with you anymore. Honestly, I feel like that's one thing that holds that back in race mode. Party mode, battle mode, definitely party though for me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really important to have that level of randomness and equalization that lets casual players enjoy it for the sake of having fun.
And everyone loves to take that, getting back at people. That's story stuff that you tell, like, oh, and then at the last turn, I stole the star.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
All right, I think that's a good number there. Thank you, everybody who wrote to us and shared your opinions. We post all of our questions for the Switch Focus on the Facebook and Twitter groups, and I've started posting them on Patreon. So if you are a Patreon backer, you'll get an email if you're following us on Patreon. So you're more than welcome to share your opinions there. Yeah, so thank you, everybody, and look forward to next week. Though I think you're going to hit up mostly the news that we weren't able to cover this week. Are you, JV?
Yes, so this was a little bit of a prorated episode just because of our current schedule. But next week, we are going to delve into all of the news topics that we missed this week, as well as featuring Star Fox Link.
Oh, yes. Outstanding. Yes. So, all right. All right. Well, I look forward to listening. I always love listening to episodes that I didn't record because it's actually a surprise what I get to hear.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, glad to be of service to you, Casey. You get to be a listener. Anyways.
Do you have any good vacations coming up that I get to cover for you?
We'll see. We'll see. I am going to Japan in around Thanksgiving time, so that's probably going to be it.
All right, awesome. All right, well, again, thanks everybody. I hope you enjoyed the show, and until next time, everybody.
Switch it up.
Thanks for listening. You can support the SwitchCast by visiting us at patreon.com/theswitchcast and join the review crew by rating us and subscribing on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Also check out our Discord chat where we have an enthusiastic bunch of Switch fans in a family-friendly environment. Also join our Facebook group for daily discussion and quite a bit of activity towards the Switch itself.
You can also contact us directly via email at kc@theswitchcast.com and jv@theswitchcast.com. Talk to us on Twitter at theswitchcast.
Thank you, HeatleyBros, for the theme music. And check us out on our website at theswitchcast.com, where we will post all relevant links and show notes.
Promotional considerations provided by publishers in the form of review copies of games.